Wanakkam everybody. Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri Datuk S. Subramaniam, Mr. Murugaya Velan, Mr. Ellen Jalian, Mr. Jayendran, Major Dr. Bigneswaran, Ms. Aisha Sharmili, Mr. Ganesh Ponnaya, and Mr. Lim Bengchun, and respected friends who have supported Science Fair, some for the longest time, and some of us are still new. I'd like to welcome you, and thank you very much for coming. Okay, so now I've got the most difficult task of giving the last speech, because everybody is thinking, can this guy speak faster so that we can go home? Right? So last year, if you remember, I don't know who came last year, what we did was, for the final speech, what I decided to do was to do something that we actually do in schools, right? And if you remember, I had a piece of ruler, and we used that ruler to teach kids the universal law of balance, right? So the simplest item, just one piece of ruler, and we can teach the kid the universal law of balance, right? Now, this year, I'm going to do something slightly different. And the whole idea of this presentation is to get the idea that knowledge is actually something very easy. Always got problems with these mics, you know. Move it. Right? So knowledge is something very, very easy. And it should not be made complicated. So Einstein once said that any law, no matter how complex, if you are unable to explain this particular law to a child, a 10-year-old child, if you cannot explain this law to a 10-year-old child, that law must not be true. That means that law is not valid. Now the idea why Einstein said this was because he had a gut feeling that all laws, because of God's mercy, is made easy for us to understand. Right? So here, so let me now give you the title of the talk today. It's called Mathematics and Enlightenment. Right? I'm going to try to link these two. It's not going to be easy, but I'll try. Okay? Now in mathematics, we all know you've got the numbers 1 to 9. In a decimal system, you got 1 to 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are called the letters of the alphabet of mathematics. Because mathematics is, after all, a language. So you got A, B, C, D, E. In math, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, to these numbers, you can do operations, right? Using what's called an operand, right? And there are only 4 types of operand. In the whole universe, there are only 4 types of operands. We all know this. Number 1 is the plus sign, of course, to add, addition. Number 2 is to subtract, minus. Number 3 is to multiply, times. And number 4 is to divide, right? And every other type, your complex calculus, your complex numbers, your partial differential equations, they are all based on these 4 operands, right? But wait a second. So this is something, a journey that, okay, it's a personal journey. When I start looking at math, then I begin to realize that there are 4 operands, but actually the times, the multiplier, is actually it's a form of addition, right? So now, if you have 2 times 5, 2 times 5 is actually 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, 5 times. So that is 2 times 5. So now there's no 4 operands. Now you have reduced it to 3. So the times is actually something that came out of plus, right? Then I realized, wait a second, the times has got something which is the divide, which is something the opposite of times. So if I can understand the whole idea of the other side, the opposite, if I understand what the opposite means, I do not need divide, right? So now I need to understand plus, minus, and the idea of the opposite, right? But now, if you take this a step further, minus is actually the opposite of plus. So you don't even need minus. So you only need plus and the idea of the opposite. So this is what math is, right? Math is just these two operands, the plus and the idea of the other, right? In how we deal with the other, right? Me and my wife or girlfriend or whatever, or me and my family. I have to say girlfriend because I'm not married. It's not an advertisement, but so in my case it would be a girlfriend. So, so me and the other, right? So it's plus and the idea of the opposite, right? Now comes, let's drop math for a while. Now comes the idea of enlightenment, right? Now, Buddha says that the whole idea of enlightenment is something simple, because he managed to take the whole universe and say there's only four main things that drive the universe, or the idea of suffering. So this is something which is a traditional or a thought process of all human beings, to say that everything is simple. So it's actually the idea of enlightenment is an idea of moving towards that which is simple, right? Not that which is complicated. However, today's education system is the opposite. The idea is to move towards that which is complex. So we start with the simple and we go towards the complex. Now, the whole idea is, we all know this, that times is actually something that came out of plus when we were kids, when we were very young. But most of us forgot, right? And most traditions say that the idea of forgetfulness is something which is human, right? So then comes the idea of, so math is just two things, plus and the other, addition and the other. And in the alternative process, you got the yin and yang, the plus and the minus, karma, good and bad, right? The good and bad. So again, once you have got the good, which is the addition, then you understand what is the other. So this is math in an enlightening way. So you're looking at math in a different way. You use math to understand spirituality, you know. So that's a bit deep. Right? Now, let's take this a step further. So you got the yin and yang. I mean, you guys have seen the yin and yang. It's a round thing. And then you've got the black on this side and then the white on this side. Now, if you move from the black to the white, or the white to the black, you'll come to a point, what's called a precipice, the point in which the black and the white is no longer distinguishable. Right? Now, how do we show this in mathematical terms? Right? Now, for the longest of time, most people did not understand, how do I show? You see, you must remember that traditionally, math, science and all that came out of a human need for understanding his or her surrounding. In other words, his meaning in life, right? So, for the longest time, people like Pythagoras were trying to figure out, how do I show, from when you move from the black to the white, the precipice in which it changes from this one end to the other. So this is when the operands no longer work. Plus, minus, divide no longer work. It stops. So this particular instance, you cannot do anything to this thing. So it's something like it's in infinity land, right? That is when the idea of zero came in, right? This is what's called, in mathematical terms, it's called the zero. Now, zero actually, most historians would agree that zero actually came from the subcontinental area. Yeah, the Harappa Mohenjo area, which was then taken by the Middle Eastern, the Persians and the Middle Eastern, and then developed further. The idea of zero was developed further. But this development was actually a development on the reality. So, because the problem now is, when we learn something, we do not, or we are not able to translate what we learn into what we see and feel and act and whatever not. We just learn it, memorize it, go for exam, finish the exam, you forget and move on, right? Now this is what we try to do in science fair, and hopefully in all our future undertakings. We want to create or bring back the reality in what we teach. Because what we have done is, the reality and what we teach has now been completely taken apart, right? So when a child is learning, the child automatically, when he learns something, he always wants to connect it to the world, but we stop him from doing that. right? The modern education system stops us from doing that. Okay, so I'll finish up now, and now I need to bring in the science fair, right? So I've been brought up here to give this, so I have to give some idea on what we want science fair, or the working group wants science fair to be. This is something that I've been involved in this for 9 years already, and we have a problem of addition. You see, the addition, the plus sign, is actually an idea of renewal as well. When you plus something, forget the times, there's only one, there's only plus. So when you plus something, you're actually renewing something. And the problem we have is we have a problem of plus, right? Because the people that we have in science fair are people who are extremely, extremely committed. I must say they're extremely committed, and I'm very, 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 very proud to work with them. For the last 9 years, I'm extremely proud to work with them. However, we have this problem of adding more ideas. So when we get more people, we want a renewal of the science fair. We want science fair to develop to the next stage. So what we would like to now appeal to you is, this is not just a fundraising dinner, right? This is a raising an awareness dinner in which we hope to get you involved into our quest. And this is our quest. I just explained to you what is it we want for the children. We want the children to stay children. We want them to keep thinking like a child. Because Einstein said, everything, the child is actually the most genius. He's the smartest of people because he's got the most greatest of imagination. So we hope that you share our vision, and we hope that you would join us. And you would join us not just as a funder, but you join us actually participating and helping the children achieve enlightenment, right? I know science and math and enlightenment is something like we don't connect, but there is a major, major connection. So we'd like to thank you very much, and we hope that before you leave, you would contact us, you will come and talk to us, and you can see how you can be involved with us in helping our reality come into play. And the other idea of sustainability is we also need the idea of sustainability addition is sustainability in terms of this organization needs to grow beyond us. We are involved now, it needs to grow beyond us. And we want to build a concept and a system we want to put a system in place before we leave. We want to put a system in place in which the system can work for itself. So that's the whole idea of having the endowment fund. Because once we have an endowment fund, then the project will self-generate, right? So we also hope for you to help us achieve and start this endowment fund and get this project, move this project beyond us. So thank you very much again, especially Minister from his busy time. Thank you very much for coming. And thank you all for listening.